Hello, everyone. I'm joined today with Alan Harris. How are you doing today, Alan?
Hey, Tachyon.
Hey, so before we begin, do you want to introduce yourself and tell people who you are?
Um, like you said, my name's Alan Harris. We're going to be talking about GamerGate today. My involvement was relatively minor. Uh, really, the thing that I'm the focal point of my involvement in GamerGate was helping to organize the Texas meetups back in 2016. It may have been 2015. Um, But yeah, that's really my credit to fame.
All right. So what got you involved with this? Why do you care about GamerGate? Why did you care about GamerGate?
Well, there was a YouTuber that did like science videos. I can't. It wasn't Dark Matter. It was another guy, and I can't think of his name now. It's been so long, and he happened to mention it in one of his videos, and so he mentioned that it was Twitter heavy, and at that time I had a Twitter account, but I basically had never used it. I'd had it for like a year. That would have been, I want to say, November of 2014, and so I went to Twitter and just searched for the hashtag, and uh, got some really, really nasty messages from people critical of Gamergate, encouraging me not to talk to those, misogynists and such. And then, but the guys that were in support of the hashtag, of the sort of movement, although at that point it wasn't really a movement yet, they were really nice to me, and so that's how I got involved in it.
Were they in fact misogynists?
Uh, mm, I'm scratching my head to think of anybody that would really qualify for that, but I think there may have been like two people that were involved heavily early on that might have been, but mostly no. In fact, a lot of them were actual women. A surprising number.
Well, why do you think that the people who warned you told you that they were misogynists?
It was just a label that they were using. It didn't really mean misogynist. I've found since all of this heated discussion, that especially online, people just use labels to basically mark things as ugly or bad or something, things they don't like. But usually, when they use that label, it doesn't actually mean that label. So that was just a prop for them to keep the discussion, keep the the leverage of the discussion on their side.
What did Gamergate mean to you?
Uh, Now that's a good question. For me, it was mostly about the people that I met, to tell you the truth. Prior to that, I was very antisocial, and so I didn't really have a lot of friends, to be honest. And that's really what GamerGate was about to me, was meeting all those people and having good, productive conversations about a lot of things, including politics.
You said you hosted the meetups. What made you want to get involved in that capacity?
Actually, there was this lady that I was renting a room from at the time, or around that time. Something Betty's. I can't remember her handle now, but her name was Betty. And she was the one that recommended it originally, and then I brought it up with Ashley Phoenix and I can't remember who else. There were two other guys involved, but Ashley was I think the best known at the time. And I brought it up in a DM with them. They were like, "That's a great idea. I don't think anybody's actually had like an official quote unquote meetup in Texas," which, as far as I was aware, was true. And so we held one let's see, in Dallas, San Antonio, which is where I was at the time, and Austin. And it seems like there was one other place, but I can't remember for sure.
Yeah, I actually hosted the St. Louis meetups. I hosted they weren't that big, but I hosted several. I don't know the exact number, but we did like one at an arcade, another we did at a mall, and then we might have done two at an there were definitely one or two more, but it was so long ago.
Yeah, yeah. God, almost a decade. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I think I tried to do one at a convention, and it was weird because like an anti-GamerGate person showed up, and then a pro GamerGate person showed up, but me and the pro person only talked for like literally 2 minutes in the hallway. We're like, "Oh hey, you're here for the meetup. What's up?" And then it was literally just like the three of us. Yeah.
Well, none of mine were that small, but they weren't big. I want to say that the San Antonio meetup was probably the smallest, and we had 20 people or so there, which for me was a big deal at the time, anyway.
Yeah, I think our biggest one was like 8 or 9 people at the arcade. I mean, it was really
Uh,
fun. We also did a meetup too at a cigar lounge.
Very misogynistic there, you know.
Well, actually, it wasn't even so much a meetup. It was a real life debate with an anti-Gamergate person in the real world, and then like just a bunch of like other people who were interested. Like one anti-Gamergate person that came to watch, and then so did like 4 or 5 uh, pro GG people, and then like one or no, I guess it was like probably like 2 or 3 pro GG people, and then like or two neutral people. Like it was more
Mhm.
like let's go talk about this and do a live debate for fun. And some people showed up and wanted to talk about it and watch it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've really had any association with anybody that I would say was actively anti-Gamergate. The closest that I've got are a couple of friends that knew about it and they kind of troll Gamergate sometimes. But it's mostly, you know, just friendly ribbing. But yeah, I don't think I've ever had a conversation in any capacity outside of, you know, Twitter, with somebody that was anti, you know, that was actively critical of Gamergate.
So, do you consider yourself a gamer?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've always loved games. Not in this. I would say not in the same way as a lot of GamerGaters who I just don't know how they have that much free time to play as much as they do. But yeah, I've always been a big fan of video games.
What does the term gamer mean to you?
To me, so yeah, to me, it just means somebody that really enjoys and actively plays games, video games. Um, For people critical of Gamergate, I know that it's got other connotations, but that's what it means to me.
So, does the term gamer have any gendered connotations at all, or no?
No, not to me. I recognize that in a lot of the gaming spaces, the overwhelming majority of people are men or you know, male. But I don't associate it. I mean, women like video games, you know, too. So
On August 28th, 2014, 10 competing publications all published articles on the same day, calling for an end to the gamer identity. These 10 articles were followed by 9 additional articles on other mostly gaming sites over the next few days, also calling for an end to the gamer identity. How do these articles make you feel?
to tell you the truth, I didn't even read those until probably 2 months after I first came and talked about it on Twitter. So they didn't really have any effect on me. The thing is, I already knew that media in general is very incestuous, right? But I didn't know how bad it was. I guess I should say. They're late, and this is just a consequence of the market. To be honest, I'm not giving them too much shit over it, but they're lazy. Um, and so it. honestly, the articles just they didn't really affect me in any way. It was finding out that there was this sort of to get conspiratorial, this sort of cabal behind it that was sort of pulling the strings and directing conversation.
So you think that there was collusion with the games press?
Oh, oh yeah, and I have to be careful how I phrase this because I don't mean it in a conspiratorial way. I'm just kind of having a little fun with the expression, but um, it's a natural consequence of sort of colleague type vocations to get together and sort of how would I say congeal into one kind of amorphous blob going the same direction. So I can't give them too much criticism for that, but it was shocking like how bad it was.
If the sorry, if these 19 sites didn't write these articles, but it just said, "Hey, look, we've got some ethical problems. We're working to fix these," or even just ignored people talking about ethics, do you think that GamerGate still would have happened?
Um, that's a tough say. I think that it would have happened eventually in some form because this was, I'm sure anybody can tell you, anybody that's involved in politics or gaming can tell you that this was a problem that was bubbling up from beneath for a long time. So eventually it would have happened. It just might not have been about games. It may have been about politics or food or something else. But it so the answer my answer to that question would be it might not have happened with Gamergate specifically, but it eventually would have happened because a lot of people were getting tired of really unethical media. They were getting tired of this sort of progressive encroachment and censorship and things like that.
Well, it seemed like the games press when they wrote these articles, they had some issues with gaming culture, uh, famously or infamously referring to people who stand in lines with mushroom hats as not even knowing why they're there. Um, things like this. If they had genuine criticisms, or if sorry, do you think any of the criticisms of gaming culture that they laid out were genuine?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think that it was misogynistic, although there probably was misogynistic stuff that was happening and probably still is. Um, but there is a lot of toxicity in particular, online, multiplayer online gaming, and gaming political discussion. And that still happens to this day. But the thing is, any topic that people are passionate about is going to be that way. That's it's not gaming isn't special in that manner. So yeah, they did. There were some legitimate criticisms. They injected their politics into the discussion in a way that was not appropriate for what they were trying, what would be a legitimate criticism.
When you say injected their politics, what do you mean?
Well, they clearly had an interest in pushing progressive policies into a lot of the media that they created. And progressive policies are fine. It's perfectly fine to advocate for it. But it led to a lot of behaviors that were unethical. Collusion being one thing, but also censorship campaigns, like outright censorship campaigns.
Were you more concerned with ethics in games journalism or with creative freedom?
Creative freedom, without a doubt.
It was
That
this.
was the thing that bugged me the most. Yeah.
It was the same for me. What about creative freedom made it so important to you?
Well, oh, oh crap. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, my thing went to sleep. Why did it switch? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. Sorry, my computer started to go to
No, you're fine.
sleep and then sorry, what were you asking?
What made creative freedom so important to you?
Oh, well, I mean, you can't have honest discussion without creative freedom. People should be able to, and I include progressives in this, by the way. They should be able to create the media that they want to create. But people won't have those discussions if you don't have a freedom to create something that's controversial.
I was talking with somebody yesterday for an interview, and they said that they thought that the creative freedom discussion should have taken place on a separate hashtag, not with Gamergate. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Um, Potentially, this gets into sort of more meta discussion about politics. Um, it probably would have been more appropriate, but it wouldn't have been as effective, and that's the problem. And like there was the same discussion had about hashtag not your shield, because it kind of amorphosized into Gamergate when in fact it was a completely separate movement. But they wouldn't have had a voice with the few number of people that they had. Same thing with Gamergate and Creative Freedom.
Did you care about ethics in games journalism at all, or was it just the creative freedom side, or for you?
Honestly, the ethics in games journalism never really bothered me that much because I was reasonably cognizant that number one, it's what would the term be? It's a luxury market, right? And number two, it's just not that important. People that read it, they're not going to have their minds changed by it. It just isn't going to happen. It's just really insulting that they can be so dishonest about it sometimes. So it never really the ugliness, like the collusion, um, which I think is what you were asking for. I just lost my train of thought. The collusion didn't really bother me. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, you did. It's just
Okay.
games journalism isn't really that important to you.
Yeah, yeah. It's just I never really took I took it with a grain of salt. So it's what's more concerning to me is that it exposed that level of problems in ethics wasn't just in the gaming space. That it it infected all journalism, and GamerGate exposed that, and that does concern me because people make policy decisions based on mainstream news. You know,
Do you have any thoughts on SPJ Airplay?
uh, I'd need something more specific. I mean, obviously I was aware of it. In fact, my roommate Betty actually went to SPJ Airplay.
Did you watch the video?
Oh yeah. Well, I watched probably an hour of it, and I want to say it was like 3 or 4 hours.
Do you think that SPJ Airplay was a good thing for Gamergate to do to try and? Well, I guess it wasn't really. Sorry, let me rephrase the question. Do you think that SPJ? Do you think that the Society of Professional Journalists hosting this event to put Gamergate people with ethics experts was a good idea?
I do. I think it was good for us to have that discussion. It meant that the SPJ, which is an important body, sort of, it is and it isn't, but it was good because it gave us an opportunity to move a little bit more into the mainstream and have our objections seen by people that work in less luxury and more important areas.
Is there anything about games journalism you want to talk about before we move on to creative freedom?
Um, no, not particularly.
All right, all right. So here we go with the juicy questions, huh? Some political activists believed that using social media campaigns to demand artists change artistic elements of their work was a good thing. What do you think of this tactic?
Honestly, I object to it. I never liked. You were asking about the campaigns to get advertisers to pull their ads,
Oh,
right?
I skipped those because you said you didn't care about games journalism that much.
Oh, my bad, dude.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not. It's more of like a rough outline I sent
I
everybody
got you.
rather than like a direct like I'm gonna ask all these questions.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to talk about Operation Disrespectful Nod, we can.
No, no, no. It's fine. We can move on.
It's no big deal. I got time, man. If it's up to you.
No, we can move on. I don't. it's just it's not really. I mean, obviously it interests me, but with games journalism specifically, I'm just not. Not. I don't really have a lot of attachment to it.
Oh yeah, and we can edit out the meta part of it if you want. You don't have to go into like us talking about. It's up to you
No,
for the
no,
book interview.
it's fine. You can keep the whole thing. It doesn't bother me that anything that I say, it doesn't bother me that you publish it.